Althorp House, ancestral home of the aristocratic Spencer family.
It is one of the grandest stately homes in the country.
It is a monument of establishment, of stability, of wealth.
And the final resting place of Diana, Princess of Wales.
Althorp became the centre of the world's attention, where people come to pay homage to the martyr that was Princess Diana.
For centuries, this grand house has entertained royalty.
They filled the house with the most amazing treasures and paintings.
Witnessed the excesses of the upper class.
And Althorp hosts a party at which 11,000 pints of beer are consumed.
And become a battleground for an aristocratic family at war.
Reign Spencer changed a lot at Althorp.
Diana was so annoyed with her, she just gave her a little push down the stairs.
Althorp has played host to the rich and famous, from Winston Churchill to Nelson Mandela and Hollywood stars. It was here that Lady Diana Spencer first met the Prince of Wales.
Althorp is actually where Charles and Diana sort of got it on.
And saw the first glimpses of royal tensions.
Charles said, "I cannot sleep in this room." So he got a chair and smashed the window.
Now it's a place for peaceful pilgrimage for royals and the public.
Harry and Meghan went to visit the island before they got married.
And a lightning rod for conspiracy theorists.
There is, of course, the theory that she's not there at all.
I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but there are crazies out there.
They won't find her because they don't know where she is. I do, but you don't.
In August 1997, Britain and the world was shocked by the sudden, violent death of Diana, Princess of Wales.
The death of Princess Diana, I think, rocked the United Kingdom and the world much, much more than people anticipated.
The world had gone slightly crazy. No one could understand what had happened.
I think it was mass hysteria, to be honest.
Even William and Harry said, "But they didn't know, Mummy. We don't understand why they're all crying."
At her funeral, Diana's brother Charles made clear his family's determination to reclaim the princess as a Spencer and return her to their ancestral home of Althorp.
It is a point to remember that of all the ironies about Diana, perhaps the greatest was this. A girl given the name of the ancient goddess of hunting was, in the end, the most hunted person of the modern age.
It was spine-tinglingly dramatic.
The reaction to it was sort of huge surprise. There was this sort of crescendo of clapping from outside the Abbey, not inside the Abbey, and then eventually people started to clap in the Abbey, but that's absolutely unheard of.
It felt like raindrops on a glass roof. I sat there and I looked across the way at the Queen's face and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, on her sticks, and I felt sorry for them.
I think that was about reclaiming her, reclaiming who she was, where she was from.
Althorp became, for a moment, the centre of the world's attention.
The funeral procession from Westminster Abbey back to Althorp took hours, literally hours.
Now in the heart of England, it followed a route to the ancestral Spencer home.
The journey to Althorp was a complete continuation. People lining the motorway. We've never seen anything like that before, ever. They were crying, they were clapping, they were bowing when the hearse passed. But more than anything, they were throwing flowers. I remember those enormous wrought iron gates swinging open and the hearse going through. And it was very poignant. And I think it really did feel as if she was going home.
That home is Althorp House, a 100,000 square foot country manor in Northamptonshire. And for over 500 years, it's been the stronghold of the Spencer family.
It is situated within a landscape that is parkland with deer roaming through it, beyond which are fields, arable fields. That's the origin of much of the wealth of the aristocratic class. It is a monument of establishment, of stability, of wealth.
It is one of the grandest stately homes in the country. It's formidable interiors, endless marble hallways, stately furniture, pictures on every wall.
They filled the house with the most amazing treasures and paintings and Rubens and Van Dycks, and they had a library full of just first editions of the rarest books.
But this is not a house where the pause button has been pressed and the thing has been fossilized in time, because every room you go in after that is a complete mishmash. Every generation has made a contribution. This family have constantly edited the house, and that might be editing it in hard times of hardship or when the going's good.
It may be a home fit for a princess, but in the emotional and chaotic days following Diana's death, there was no guarantee that Charles Spencer would get his way and bring his sister back to Althorp.
The rule book didn't tell you what to do if a Princess of Wales died in these tragic circumstances. Even the Queen was confused.
Is she to be buried with the Windsors? Should she be in Westminster Abbey? Should she be more likely at Frogmore House, the royal burial ground?
She was divorced from the Prince of Wales, but that's where the Queen thought it would be very fitting. But Spencer said absolutely not. And first of all, he thought, well, she would go in the family vault in the local church. But then he thought, no, this is not going to work, because it's going to become a shrine and people from all over the world are going to come there, and it's going to be impossible.
And you can understand why Charles Spencer decided, let's cut with that.
She's a Spencer. She's coming back to her roots.
Coming up, Diana's very private funeral at Althorp.
He turned to this small group of people and said, "She's a Spencer now."
A stepmother endures the wrath of the Spencer children.
They sing Rain, Rain, Go Away, you know, an acid rain, they call it. I mean, it's the sort of classic stepmother tropes.
And Winston Churchill breaks the house rules.
Diana's grandfather tells Churchill off in the archive of the Spencer family in Althorp.
Sitting at the heart of the Althorp estate is an island. This is the final resting place of Diana, Princess of Wales, a 19th century garden feature surrounded by 36 oak trees, one for each year of Diana's short life, and a safe space for her closest family.
I think Earl Spencer felt he was giving something to her immediate family, to her sons, to Harry and William, that they could go and privately visit their mother's grave.
William and Harry have been there many times in their life, and you know, we don't see them doing it because it is private, because it is a place that's supposed to be secure for them to be able to pay their respects in the way that they want to do. Harry and Meghan went to visit the island before they got married.
I think Harry wanted to ask permission, his mother's permission, to marry Meghan.
This was a mother-in-law that she would never get to know. And he wanted her to be part, I suppose, of his life and of his grief.
Until he met Meghan, his heart never mended. So for Harry, It's a very poignant moment for him to take his future bride, his wife, to meet his mother.
At the time of the funeral, the Spencers didn't want the press anywhere near Diana's graveside, so only a select few attended the burial.
I went with Prince Charles, William and Harry, the Spencer girls and Charles. We all went on the royal train to Great Buckley, and then from there went to Althorp for lunch.
The atmosphere in the house, as I understand it, was pretty damned awkward at that stage.
For some strange reason, Charles Spencer put me next to Prince Charles. And then the butler came in and whispered in Earl Spencer's ear. He stood and said, "Diana's arrived, everybody."
Earl Spencer had one more statement to make.
Charles Spencer pulled off the royal standard from the princess's coffin and produced, like a magician, the Spencer flag, which he draped over the coffin. He turned to this small group of people and said, "She's a Spencer now."
And that was highly symbolic.
The Spencers' family pride is a product of their 500-year history of wealth and influence, and is reflected in their own spin on how to pronounce the name of their monumental estate.
The question, the burning question, how do you pronounce Althorp?
I was standing with Mrs. Shankid, Diana's mother, one day, and I pronounced Althorp. And she said, "No, Paul, no."
Althorp. Not Althorp, Althorp.
If you're well posh, I think, and go back years in one of these aristocratic families, you say Althorp. A bit like really posh people say goff, not golf.
Althorp. Thorpe. I mean, the Anglo-Saxons put down Thorpe, Thorp. Throp is ridiculous. It's a completely wild affectation, which I have no respect for at all.
But I have to confess that we perhaps should be guided by Earl Spencer himself, who says that his ancestors, he's named them his great aunt and various other people, always called it Althorp.
Well, not unless the Spencers call themselves the Speckners, and then I'll take it seriously.
I don't think it matters how you say it. So long as you respect the property, behave like a true aristocrat when you visit.
The estate is set over 13,000 acres, with the house boasting 90 rooms, including over 30 luxurious bedrooms, 88 fireplaces. Antiques and fine furniture are everywhere. From ancient Roman statues guarding the front door to a unique tea service created for doomed French Queen Marie Antoinette. The 115-foot-long picture gallery was created by the second Earl in the late 1600s and is now home to many of Althorp's 650 precious paintings. In all, it is one of the finest private art collections in Europe. But the house had relatively humble beginnings, a point of honour for the aristocratic Diana Spencer.
I always wondered, actually, why Diana had a particularly favourite jumper with sheep on it. She loved her jumper. And, of course, her ancestors were very wealthy sheep farmers.
They originated from a 15th century sheep farmer. And he was smart enough to think, I'm going to sell my sheep in London. I'm not going to sell my sheep to local traders, and I'm going to get much more money for them. And in the end, they did amass a huge fortune, enough that they could then buy the peerage from Charles I. And then the first Earl Spencer built this enormous sort of Palladian-looking house in the midst of this beautiful estate in Northamptonshire, on the grounds where the old house used to be.
The Spencer Spencers certainly were an important family in aristocracy that had links to the royal family. Members of the Spencer family were equerries for the royal family.
As an equerry, you were extremely close. You know, you're like a uniformed chief PA, really, in many ways.
And those close links to royalty came from the Spencers' canny ability to splash the cash and make a spectacular impression when the royals came to visit.
The first royal visit is that of James I's wife, Anna of Denmark. When she comes to be hosted by the Spencers, they really outdo themselves at Althorp. They turn the estate into a piece of living theatre in which actors are performing a new play by Ben Jonson, welcoming the fairy queen into a fairy tale kingdom. Anna is so impressed by the Spencers' hospitality that when she reaches London and reunites with her husband, King James, they have a discussion about which families they are going to honour with aristocratic titles, and Anna puts forward the Spencer family, and that is how that initial branch of the Spencer family become barons, landed, titled aristocrats for the first time.
The partying has continued ever since, thanks to the first Earl Spencer, who decreed the house should be used as a place of entertainment, a wish one particular young Spencer took full advantage of.
Georgian high society is all about showing off and excess, and in the winter of 1755, John Spencer is celebrating his 21st birthday, his adulthood, and Althorp hosts a party at which allegedly 11,000 pints of beer are consumed. We're not really sure how they kept the tally of that. You would imagine after the first 6,000 you might start to lose count. At the height of this party, the birthday boy disappears, and John Spencer has actually gone with his romantic interest, Margaret Georgiana Poyntz, into Althorp, into the Oak Room, where they are secretly married. It certainly was a big party.
The beautiful house and grounds are the culmination of centuries of building, rebuilding, and developing as the Spencers' fortunes ebbed and flowed.
When you approach the entrance front, it might remind you a bit of Versailles because, like Versailles, it has wings that project and they frame the central entrance portal. I mean, it all makes sense. It's a very clear way to guide you to the heart of the building. When you go into the entrance hall, you're in a really grand space. It's probably the best Georgian hall in Northamptonshire, and it's still lined with the paintings of the horses that they took out for rides and hunts in the 1730s. But the rest of the house is a juggling act of slight improvements, losses, additions.
But the outside of Althorp is very different to how the house looked almost 250 years ago. When the Tudor look fell out of fashion, a Georgian aristocrat's version of stone cladding was used to cover the original red bricks.
As you get closer, you find it's something of a cuckoo chick in Northamptonshire because it's the wrong colour. It's a slightly light, creamy colour. And the reason for that is it's covered with late 18th century tiles that were imported here to turn what was a red brick building into something which looked like stone, but it's a mask, really.
I think you have to have quite a keen eye or a vivid imagination to try and envisage what it might have looked like in Tudor and in Stuart times with the much more kind of flamboyant red brick. Now, arguably, it's been better preserved because of this grey tiled facade that you see today.
Today, Althorp is synonymous with the late Princess of Wales, but the young Diana Spencer didn't actually grow up there. For the first 14 years of her life, home was Park House, 90 miles away on another royal estate.
Diana was born in Norfolk, in Sandringham, and clearly the royal family socially engaged with the Spencers at Sandringham. Auntie Lilibet being the queen. I mean, how many people have that privilege to account for?
She grew up watching Chitty Chitty Bang Bang with Prince Andrew and Edward.
So she was extraordinarily well connected.
Diana almost never moved to Althorp House, thanks to an antiquated tradition that demanded any potential heir had to have a son before they could inherit the land and title.
She thought by being a girl and not a boy, she'd failed the family.
In order to inherit Althorp, the Earl, Johnny Spencer, had to give birth to a son. She has 2 daughters, Jane and Sarah. The 3rd pregnancy delivers a son, as usual, called John, who dies almost immediately. Then pregnant again for the 4th time, and it's another girl, it's Diana. It isn't until Charles comes along after Diana that you have the guarantee of Althorp staying within that branch of the family.
Thanks to the birth of her baby brother Charles, Diana's father finally inherited Althorp when the 7th Earl died. It also meant she became Lady Diana Spencer.
And it wasn't till she was in her early teens that her father inherited Althorp, and they all moved there. And she was quite thrilled, actually, to suddenly be Lady Diana. She liked that. And I know she liked that because years and years later, I was talking with her and I was saying, you know, what's it like to be a princess? And she said, I don't wake up every morning thinking, yippee, I'm a princess. She said, what I really like, I love it when people shout out to me in the street and they say, hi, Lady Di, Lady Di. She said, that's who I really feel.
Thrilled as she was with the new title, the move to Althorp wasn't an easy adjustment.
It was a lot for the children to manage at the same time as they're being dragged away from Park House, where they grew up on the Sandringham estate, and shifted across country. It's a 2 or 3 hour drive from there to Althorp, where they don't really know anyone, where it's not their gaff.
And of course, Diana was pretty damaged by this time anyway, because her mother had left home when she was only 6 years old.
Earl Spencer became estranged from Mrs. Shankid, his wife, who went to live in Australia.
The time Diana was at Althorp coincided with her father finding a new wife.
That's when the trouble really started.
Rain McCorkadale was a British socialite and the daughter of romantic novelist Barbara Cartland. For Rain and Johnny Spencer, it may have been a secret love affair straight out of Mills and Boon, but it sparked unrelenting resentment from the children.
What really compounded their feelings towards Rain was not only did they feel that she's taking Daddy away from us, but they were kept in the dark about it. They were kept in the dark about the engagement. They learnt about all this, they say, through the newspapers, and they were very, very hurt by that. In fact, Diana went up to her father and she slapped him round the face and said, that's for hurting us, all of us. So these were difficult times for Diana in many ways.
They did everything they could to make her feel uncomfortable, but she's a very, very determined woman. And the more they fought against her, the more she steeled herself and thought, I'm not going to let them beat me. I'm not going to let these villainous children beat me.
Althorp wasn't a happy home for Diana, but it was the place that would bring about the biggest change to her life.
Althorp is actually where Charles and Diana sort of got it on.
Coming up, the lady and the prince find each other at the Spencer family home.
It wasn't unusual for Prince Charles to date sisters. The Spencers were in his sight.
Diana takes an argument too far.
Diana was so annoyed with her about something that she just gave her a little push down the stairs.
And grave robbers invade the island at Althorp.
There are some idiots, some mad people who still try to break in and try and make their way to the island.
Althorp House opens to the public for 2 months every year. But if you have some serious money, you can have a proper aristocratic experience.
In fact, you can rent the whole shooting match if you want. If you've got the money and you want exclusivity, then it comes at a big price. Don't know what it is, but it's big, and you can hire the whole lot.
And there are over 30 guest bedrooms, I believe. And it can be privately rented. So if you are mega loaded, I don't think even Madonna and Guy Ritchie were rich enough in the end to be able to rent it for their wedding.
In the past, newspapers have claimed a single night's exclusive rental of Althorp for 50 guests could be as much as £75,000, with a lavish banquet and breakfast thrown in too. And you could even choose to stay in the Princess of Wales' bedroom.
There is a room in Althorp known as the Princess of Wales room. It's a bedroom, but it's not that Princess of Wales. It's not linked to Diana, Princess of Wales.
I believe that was Alexandria, who was the wife of the notorious Bertie, Edward VII.
Quite interestingly, some historians have referred to Alexandra of Denmark as the Princess Diana of her day. She was very beautiful, she was very popular, and she was associated with many charitable causes that increased her popularity with the British people.
So these houses are British history.
Althorp has had many other famous visitors, including movie stars and Nelson Mandela. But one politician and historian was drawn here by the family's history. Sir Winston Churchill was obsessed by his Spencer family connections, and he pushed his luck when he made himself at home.
What you have when you look into the Spencer family tree, you bump into the Marlboroughs, the Churchills.
Winston Churchill is someone who is immensely proud of his Spencer heritage. When he comes to Althorp, he likes to stay in the Oak Room. He's a keen amateur historian. He does a lot of research onto his Spencer relatives and their history.
Diana's grandfather, who's obsessed with all the papers and the Grand Masters in his own house, comes and tells Churchill off for smoking his cigar in the archive of the Spencer family in Althorp.
And Althorp was at the centre of recent royal history, because it's here that Lady Diana and Prince Charles first met, a meeting that would change the monarchy forever.
It was 1977. Charles came to stay as a friend of my sister Sarah's for a shoot. We sort of met in a ploughed field.
Diana Spencer first came across the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, when he was actually dating her older sister, Lady Sarah McCorquodale.
It wasn't unusual for Prince Charles to date sisters.
I remember thinking what a very jolly and amusing and attractive 16-year-old she was.
And Charles saw Diana, who had blossomed into, a pretty stunning 16-year-old. And they got chatting.
She was young. She was connected. She was an aristocratic family. She was beautiful.
And I think Diana was fairly smitten at that early age.
She never had a boyfriend. She was perfect.
And it was a few months or even a year later where she attended the Prince of Wales' 30th birthday party.
It was to Althorp that Diana's invitation to Charles's 30th birthday is sent. She asks her sister Sarah's permission to go to Charles's 30th birthday party.
This was not long after Prince Charles's uncle, Mountbatten, was killed in that IRA bomb, and he'd just broken up with another girlfriend, so he was pretty sad. And Diana said it would be nice to see him. They ended up hanging out, sitting on some hay bales, and the rest, as they say, is history.
The relationship that started at Althorp was a match made in aristocratic heaven.
She's Lady Diana Spencer before she's the Princess of Wales, lest we forget. She's a genuine blue blood. She was from a large estate, a Protestant family.
There is a sense that in a very public way, aristocrats marry wealth, that they pass land and property between themselves, marrying each other or their cousins or their uncles or whatever it is. For a commoner, this may seem strange or abnormal, but is it? Surely that's what we also do in our own way.
People sometimes think, oh, Diana was not exactly a commoner, but she was one of us. Well, she was really one of them.
So it's all wheels within wheels with these aristocratic families.
Suddenly, everyone had heard of the Spencers and Althorp.
I mean, Diana was on the front pages of every newspaper. She was in the news on television practically every day. But it was Althorp that started things rolling.
But the house Diana lived in wasn't as happy or as glamorous as it appeared in the media.
These huge stately homes always have the problem that they have acres and acres of lead roofs. And that is very expensive. So they're always selling off this and that to pay for the roof. You hear about it all the time. And Spencer was no different.
It takes a lot of money to keep a roof on a house like Althorp House.
There was always treasures coming into it and money coming into it, but not in this particular generation.
Diana's stepmother, Rain, sought solutions to the high bills and never-ending maintenance costs, which made her even more unpopular.
Rain Spencer changed a lot at Althorp.
And Rain is the one who's on it when it comes to refurbing or overhauling Althorp to make it financially viable.
She closed down the old stable block and made it a gift house and tea rooms. She started opening the house to the public.
She sort of modernised it in a way that the children, of course, loathed, and they loathed her. They just really took against Rain, and they called her Acid Rain.
They sing Rain, Rain, Go Away, an acid rain. They call it, it's the sort of classic stepmother tropes. Apparently she sold off 1/5 of the grand masters in the house.
There was all kinds of stories in the newspapers and magazines about the treasures of Althorp that had been sold cheaply and had been sold wrong. And Charles Spencer, of course, realising that he would be the eventual Earl and he was due to inherit all this stuff, was beside himself.
And Diana said she put gold paint on everything. She regilded furniture.
And so she made herself very unpopular, I'm afraid, with the children. And that frostiness lasted for very many years.
Rain modernised Althorp at a reported cost of £3 million, including making the house less drafty, something that led Prince Charles to have a smashing time when he stayed there.
Some of Rain's improvements did make the house not so much warm as uncomfortably hot, and several guests at Althorp felt like they were being made to sleep like orchids in a hothouse.
Charles said, I cannot sleep in this room because it's too hot. I can't sleep in here. And he couldn't open the window, so he got a chair and smashed the window. It's lovely and dramatic to think he threw the chair through the window, but he actually sort of poked the window and broke it, so he could then get his hand round the latch and open it.
Eventually, the animosity between the Spencer children and Rain became physical.
After Diana's marriage, there was still no love lost with Rain. Diana was so annoyed with her about something that she just gave her a little push down the stairs. Ken Wharf, who was Diana's protection officer at the time, actually witnessed this. So it's not a make-up story, physically witnessed Diana pushing Rain down the stairs.
When Johnny Spencer died in 1992, Diana's brother Charles inherited Althorp, and Rain Spencer left the house. Diana and Rain eventually reconciled, but it was short-lived as months later, Diana met her fateful end in Paris. Coming up, was Althorp truly Diana's home?
This is very confusing to try and understand whether Althorp was Diana's home or not.
The island becomes a target.
Being a grave digger or trying to find Diana's grave within the Althorp grounds, not acceptable on any terms.
And a conspiracy theory finally solved.
I was there, I witnessed it personally, and in fact, I was the last person to say goodbye to her.
Today, Althorp's private grounds cover 550 acres, surrounded by a whopping 13,000 acres of farmland. Originally, the gardens around the house were formal Tudor designs, but all that changed when the fad for a more natural look hit Althorp in the 18th century.
What people wanted was a slice of southern Italy on the English landscape. And to do that, people like Capability Brown, the most famous of them by the 1760s and 70s, was scouring out great valleys within the landscape, creating mounds, views between clumps of trees as eye catchers. The eye moves out across the landscape so that gardening is on a grand scale. And Althorp was part of that movement.
Althorp's 21st century gardens feature oak trees older than the estate itself and black fallow deer that have roamed the grounds since the 15th century. It's a setting that invites the local wildlife in, where ancient hedgerows serve as food and shelter for them. It is the perfect backdrop for the journey from the house to the final resting place of Diana, Princess of Wales.
You emerge from Althorp House through a side exit. You walk between some beach avenues, and then suddenly there is something called the round oval. That is a pond, or lake, let's call it, with an island in the middle.
And on the edge of the lake, an old temple has been given a new life as a memorial for Diana.
There, at the far side, you see the only Georgian-styled building, the kind of thing you would expect in an 18th century garden, with a classical temple front to it, at the far side of this oval lake. And you walk round to it, and there you see the Diana Memorial. I mean, her name is writ large within the pediment of this thing. It is of an impressive scale. And once you're there, it is quite an emotional space.
After Diana's death, Charles Spencer faced a dilemma. He had to protect the future of Althorp and keep his sister's memory alive.
And one of the ways the Spencers resolved it was by opening their doors to the public.
Al Spencer certainly had a difficult line to toe in that, you know, Princess Diana certainly was brought back home, buried at Althorp in the Oval Lake, but also he had this massive estate that he needs to keep going, keep the money pouring in. And so for a long time, you had this Diana exhibition.
There are some of her possessions there. There's a school trunk there that has her initials on it, and some of her collection of little tiny china animals and houses. So the place is redolent with Diana's memory. Charles Spencer has made it, I think, fair to say, a bit of a shrine to Diana.
And he was really quite criticised for, I suppose, exploiting his sister's memory.
Diana's exhibition was eventually closed in 2013, but every year around 20,000 people still visit Althorp.
Whether that exhibition is there or not, the legend, the icon that is Princess Diana continues. It continues with or without Earl Spencer and his exhibition at Althorp.
I suppose Earl Spencer has made it absolutely clear that the opening of his home is about Diana, because it opens to the public on her birthday, and it closes on the day of her death. It is Diana's life encapsulated there.
So there's all sorts of things that encourage the cult of Diana.
And this cult of Diana has become a threat to the estate, leading the Earl to ramp up its security since his sister's death.
Some pilgrims' desired intent is to acquire a part of the venerated person's body. And so one could see why the family, with due diligence, would place her body in a place that is not physically accessible because they are aware of that historical reality.
And obviously means there's a lot more security expenses for him.
They actually buried on the island certain metal slabs so that those who go with metal detectors don't actually manage to find Diana's grave and therefore dig it up. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but there are crazies out there.
But despite all of Althorp's efforts, there have been at least 4 attempts by people with questionable motives to disturb her grave.
People have been caught trying to get to her graveside.
I feel for Earl Spencer, really, in that he's trying to protect Diana, protect her memory, protect her grave, and yet there are some idiots, some mad people who still try to break in and try and make their way to the island.
You have to get a rowboat to go out to an island, and you don't actually know where she is. I do, but you don't. She's not marked. She's in an unmarked grave.
And they just, I suppose, want to see where she's buried.
Certain people will go beyond what is considered decent and acceptable, whether that's being a keyboard warrior or whether that is being a grave digger or trying to find Diana's grave cordoned off within the Althorp grounds. Not acceptable on any terms.
Shockingly, there are those out there who don't even believe Diana is buried on the island. Throughout her short life as a royal, Diana was a magnet for rumours and wild speculation, and it seems, even in death, she and her family can't escape them.
There is, of course, the conspiracy theory, which is quite current locally, I know this, that she's not there at all, that she's actually buried in the church. But this is some kind of double bluff by the Spencer family.
How could she be? There isn't space for her.
And it's not surprising, actually, that these conspiracies continue long after her death, because a lot of it to people feels unexplained.
So there's always going to be conspiracy theories, and they will never, ever go away. Half the world still thinks that she was killed.
A woman that was hounded by the press died in a car crash while being chased by paparazzi.
As long as there are questions, it always retains a fascination.
As Diana's butler and close friend, Paul Burrell attended the burial, and here he sets the record straight.
She is buried on the island. I was there. I witnessed it personally. I stood around the graveside. And in fact, I was the last person to say goodbye to her. I will never forget that moment. As I threw that earth down and looked at the plate. Diana, Princess of Wales, and her dates.
Althorp House is a monument to one of the oldest aristocratic families in England. 19 generations of the Spencer family have lived, shaped, and defined it. For 500 years, they have amassed fortune and gained influence. Its most celebrated resident will forever be Diana, Princess of Wales. But was it really her home?
I think that home is where your heart is. And the point of her returning home is that this was her spiritual home.
It's where her ancestral home is, and it's where she lies in perpetuity. And I think it's very special, actually. When I go there, you do feel close to her, and you also feel, I certainly feel, that it's entirely right that she should be there, and that there is a peace and a tranquility.
So these are the ghosts of Althorp, and it's, I'm sure, a stately home that will keep delivering stories well on into the future, and will keep questing to find the right way of exhibiting and sharing its legacy, for better or for worse.